We are so pleased to host Theresa Bailey this evening, co-author of the best-selling book, Hockey Moms, The Heart of the Game. Congratulations, Theresa, on not only making it to the bestseller list, but staying there for 5 weeks during what us librarians know is a very busy pre-Christmas release time. So at that, I would just like to say, everyone, please welcome Theresa Bailey.
Thank you. And hello, everyone. And thank you for coming. It's sort of a weird feeling to do workshops and facilitate things and talk to people as my job, my whole life, and then you're putting together a presentation to come here for people that have kind of known you your whole life. So it's a very strange sort of situation where I hope that I give you some of the information or some stories that are interesting, and because I feel like you all kind of know me, so there's not really that much to tell you about some of that stuff, but I will tell you about the process. So I'm really excited to be here. The only thing missing is Terry Marcotte, and he was a really important part of getting this book published, but I'll get into that in a little bit. I'm going to see him tomorrow night. We're going to a Senators game, and I'll catch up with him then and ask him any questions that we have that we can't get answered. So that's Terry and I, and that was us at the book launch that we had in Ottawa, a mayor's launch that we had. That was October 18th, and since that time it has been an absolute whirlwind. But I will tell you that this has actually been a book that has taken place in my brain for the last 12 years. It started around 2009, actually, is when I got the idea to write the book. And I will share with you about where the inspiration came from. And the way this is going to work tonight is I'll just talk for a little bit, and then you can ask some questions, and then we'll all talk together and have some coffee and stuff. So what inspired the book? Well, it started with my kids when they got into hockey. It starts with this town, and it starts with my parents. So I don't know why I'm emotional. It's the first time I have been. But when you see everything on the screen, it kind of all comes together, right? Yeah. So it's very special to be here. And I've been... Well, I think that's part of it. It's called Hockey Moms, The Heart of the Game, because all that stuff never leaves us. And one of the conversations I've had recently with a friend who is wishing she knew Inuktitut, because they seem to have so many more words for things. We know they have like 30 some words for snow, but there's one word for grateful, it seems. And there's one word for love, but the love that you have for people in your life, it's all different. And the love that you have for your kids and your family, that's what we're talking about in this book. So I'm going to read the foreword from the book because I think that it tells you the story of where it came from better than I could probably right now in my emotional state. And I'll just read excerpts of it. So my interest in the hockey world started early. I cried when my brother was practicing, and my parents put me on the ice too, so I'd shut up. I was 2 years old, that's true. As I got older, I knew something was off in the sport that everyone got so excited about. There was no girls' hockey at the time, just ringette. Even at 3 and 4, I wondered why girls had to play hockey with half a stick. Playing with half a stick, as I called it, didn't appeal to me, so I ended up figure skating. Hockey became a game I'd watch from the sidelines, but as an adult, all but consumed my life. Hockey moms joke that the rink is our second home. For me, that has always rung true. I competed in figure skating until my second year at the University of Ottawa. I just skipped a page. That's thousands of hours logged on the ice myself and thousands more as a spectator. I began to appreciate that I could watch my friends and hang out and watch my brother at the rink, because I used to hate going, actually. It It's what my family did. Rinks for skating, rinks for minor hockey, OHL games, Memorial Cups. As for most hockey families, it becomes a lifestyle, and a lot of you have lived that. My family lived sports. Hockey and baseball consumed most of our time, add in figure skating. Most of my childhood memories revolve around team sports, friends, competitions, ballparks, and hockey tournaments. Team meals and packed coolers, road trips. You can't be at the rink this much without your parents being fully invested, and mine were. My father, Harold, was a strong athlete and played hockey well into his 20s. He got into coaching and then was a minor hockey executive in several roles, including president. I remember the late night phone calls to resolve the same issues back then that I dealt with 30 years later as president. All the same stuff, still. He was and is still known and respected, I think, in our community. As someone who is always giving back, I learned from the best. And then there was my mom. A lot has been said about the crazy hockey mom stereotype. It's not something I've ever accepted because for me it didn't exist. My mom is solid and remains a strong presence in our community. She knows about hockey, about how it's played and the work it takes to make it happen. She commands respect by being respectful and getting things done. She's always getting things done. For years, she was deeply involved with our minor hockey association. She eventually became secretary and president, just as my father had been before her. My brother Jason became president when his children began to play, and I took my turn as president of Center Hastings Minor Hockey Association 4 years later, and then was on the board for Quinte Regional Minor Hockey Association. We give back, it's in our family DNA. I had no choice. It was inevitable that hockey lifestyle would be in my blood, and now as my mom bangs her cowbells together, cheering for her grandchildren, our family hockey journey continues. And this is the key. Anywhere there is a patch of outdoor ice or a rink, you will find stories like mine. This is how the hockey culture was born and why it will continue. And then I'm going to jump to, there is no guidebook to being a hockey parent. We all struggle with solutions, when to get involved, when to remain silent so we don't further hurt our children. I remember wondering aloud, how would the mother of an NHL star handle this? The question led me to create the website and social media platforms, Canadian Hockey Moms, and that's when the idea of this book began to take root. Even back then, my goal is to talk to hockey moms to ask them how they manage to keep all the moving parts together for their families, how they deal with the controversy and chaos that came with a very intense world. Then I wanted to share the information with everyone else. How do you deal with the controversy when the coaches are your friends? How do you break down barriers in hockey to make sure everyone has a chance to play? How do you make sure teams are inclusive? How do you talk to coaches without jeopardizing your child's future? How do you separate hockey politics from the moral obligation to intervene when something is actually wrong? We're seeing that all across Hockey Canada right now. That's the issue. These are the questions hockey moms ask themselves, the questions that keep us up at night. For me, there's almost something spiritual about sport. There's a synchronous energy you can feel when teams are working together on the ice. You can feel it when fans are cheering on their teams, and you can feel it when you're huddled around the TV watching the playoffs of your Olympic gold medal name. I've spent years fascinated by the sense of community in the hockey culture I've experienced through my kids' journeys with a lot of associations. But there's one thing that's been missing. I've never seen a book about the experiences and contributions of hockey moms, the women behind it all who make it happen. I wanted to tell these women's stories. A few interviews in, I asked my friend Terry Marcotte, a respected sports journalist, for his help. As we reached out to more mothers in search of diverse stories, we heard from moms who have raised the best players in the world and moms who never in a million years believed their children would take a step on the ice, but they did. Together, Terry and I have written a book as a celebration of the heart, souls, and contributions of hockey moms. These women have forged a place in a game that has been traditionally very white and very male. By telling the stories of our hockey moms, we begin to fill in the holes left in the fabric of hockey culture where most stories have been told by men about men. Now we can round out those stories with the perspectives of the mothers. I consider this book my love letter to hockey moms. That's where it came from. So that really sums it up. Thank you. Good night. No. That sums it up. That's what I wanted to do. And I think the other important factor in all of it is the sense of community. That was a playoff game in the Madoc Arena. It was packed. And I believe it was a midget game maybe, when my nephew was playing, but nothing can pack a rink or the community like a hockey game. We all show up. And a lot of you who are in the audience, I grew up with at the rink. So for me, hockey is very connected to the people that I know and that I love and who have made me who I am. That's all part of it. And you can have that anywhere in the community, but because I spent so much time in Madoc Arena, that's where it came from. So the importance of community was so much on my mind that I actually got a graduate degree in community psychology. And that's an important part of my story and where the whole book came from, because when I was starting the website, I was trying to put some of my community psychology skills together. And without going into too much detail around what the catalyst was to that, but it involved a very shortened bench, meaning my son got out for one shift in a game 3 hours away from home at 7 years old, and being told that was to be expected in rep hockey. And that's tricky as a parent because you don't know if that's normal or not. And I wasn't the only one dealing with it and thought, there's so much angst around all of this. There must be a way to deal with it in a better way than we are, because there was nobody talking about it at the time. But I had just quit my job at a school board. I was acting as a consultant, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to learn something about social media and see if I could build a community online? And that's when Canadian Hockey Moms Facebook and community started. And my goal was to, because I'm trained in research through community psychology, my goal was to give back actual facts about things, and also to ask people who had already been through with their kids the questions that I felt people were struggling with in this really intense world. Because let's face it, people who are involved in this world you're all in, a lot of it for like 8 months of the year. So that's where it came from. And this community now has around 40,000 moms across Canada. They make me laugh every single day. I have a lot of people, most people from Canada, most women from Canada, the United States and across Europe. They're funny, they're very engaged, it's very highly engaged, which means that people want to work with me all the time. So I've worked with some brands who are trying to get to the moms. The most vocal people on the Hockey Moms page are men. Surprise. Just kidding. They are. We've got men too. And they participate. So this idea came around 2009, and I knew that as a rookie hockey mom that I didn't have what it took at that point or the knowledge to really get it started. So I waited until about 2016 when I thought I'd tackle it again. And I ended up meeting someone who's featured in the book, Nathan Parrott, through the website, who ended up connecting me to the First Moms. I told him the idea. He thought it was a great idea. And he had played in the NHL, so I thought, okay, if one person thinks it's a good idea, I guess I'll go for it. So from those first two moms, the first mom I went to meet in person, and her name is Terry Konechny, and I believe she's chapter 3. And it was freezing rain, and I ended up doing the interview from the car with a little recorder on the phone. And we kept getting cut off, and I would have to call her back. But that was how the first interview happened. And then the second interview happened with Kristen Krause. She is a principal of a Montessori school in London, and I got to go into her office. So from there, things started snowballing. I got to talk to Matt Duchesne's mom. He's a superstar. And then it ended up that I got to talk to Connor McDavid's mom, Kelly. And Connor McDavid is arguably, maybe not arguably, he just is the best player in the world right now. So to be able to go to her office and talk to her was very special. And one of the things that happened, she had this beautiful office and she was head of HR, and we had a great conversation. And you look over and there's a calendar, an Oilers calendar of Connor McDavid there, and then there are some pictures of Connor and his brother Cameron. And she was telling me about this man who came up to meet with her in the office, and he looks over and he goes, "Oh, are you a Connor McDavid fan? Oilers fan?" And she goes, yeah. And then he kind of looks at the picture beside, which are the two boys, and then there's a graduation picture, and he's like, oh my gosh, you're Kelly McDavid, you're Connor's mother. So that's how Kelly is. She's just very down to earth and humble, but I thought that was really funny. So I got started, and then as my life was busy, running a business, 3 kids in hockey, I ended up not being able to get very far because I was just too busy, and it takes a lot of energy to do the interviews and transcribe them. So then the pandemic hit, and I had more time, and I was alone a week at a time, and decided to start again. And I reached out to Terry, who had done some interviews with me before, because he's a journalist. He was a journalist. He's retired now, in Ottawa. And I reached out to try to get him to connect me to some of the senators' moms. And he said, you know, Theresa, I'm retired now. Do you want some help? And I thought, yeah, I do. Because the other thing that had happened was I ended up with this incredible opportunity through Hasbro to develop corporate training with Play-Doh. And so I was also at the same time putting together my business plan and launching this corporate training with Play-Doh across North America. I have the exclusive license. So I was doing both of these things at the same time through the pandemic. And if Terry had not been there, I wouldn't have been able to probably do either of them, honestly. I probably would have been able to get the starfish stuff done, but not the book. But that's why he was so important. And so once we started working together and able to get more and more of the moms, we wanted to include moms from diverse backgrounds. That was important to us. NHL moms, players who had never gotten there, sledge hockey, billet moms, Black players, Indigenous players, and local people too. It started to pick up, and it got easier to get people, and then we got connected to HarperCollins. When you have 40 years of journalism experience, coupled with a community of niche 40,000 hockey moms, and there's never been a book written about hockey mom experience, it was a no-brainer for them to jump on it. So the deal came very quickly with HarperCollins, and I know that that's not other authors' experience with publishing houses, but it was really 60 years of experience that ended up getting us that book. It just came at perfect timing. So I feel very fortunate that that happened. So we got the book deal, and then once you have that, it's easier to get people to participate, although there were still people who said no. Yeah, I don't know if I'll go into that too much. Out of respect for them. They're probably regretting it now. But if you think about it, what is the stereotype of hockey moms? And would you want yourself exposed like that in a book, if that was the image that was cast on you? And that was a lot of how people were initially feeling about it. So it took some convincing sometimes to say that, no, this is not going to be a scandalous book. It's a book about love. So the interviews, as I had told you, were first in person, and then I did a couple by phone when I had to, and then the pandemic hit, and suddenly there was access to everybody all the time by Zoom and Skype and every other tool. So our book sort of coincided with this explosion of the use of technology. So we did a lot of the interviews by Zoom, and it made it really easy because you can record them. And now, instead of, when I was in graduate school and you did interviews, you had to transcribe them. You had to get what was called a dictaphone. Anyone ever use those, where you would and you'd be typing? You don't have to do that now. You just upload the file and it gives you back the file with the words. It's a little wonky. You have to fix it, but it saves hours of work. It's a very different world now. So we started doing interviews, and this, as someone who was very alone through the pandemic a lot, I was connected to all these people from all over the world. So one of the chapters is Brenda Lee or Kathy Lee and Brenda. We talked to them. Down on the bottom, Manon Réaume, and her mother was also on that call on the phone. So that was pretty fascinating. That was one of my favorite interviews. She's really awesome. Up at the top left, I guess, is Motorcycle Marge. That's Motorcycle Marge, and one of her daughters is kind of cut out. Marge was on oxygen, and when we did the interview, she wasn't really well, but she did the interview with us, and she passed away during the writing of the book. So that was really special. Her chapter is one of my favorite chapters. She grew up in southern Manitoba, and her husband left her with 6 children. The youngest one was 1 year old, and she lived on a farm. She had played hockey as a child, and then they started a team in the 70s, so she went back. And she said, I started as a forward. I was pretty fast. I was good. Then I got older and I moved to defense. And by the end, she was in net. And she had 5 daughters and a son, and her daughters all played with her. So she got to play with all 5 of her daughters. And I don't know of anyone else I don't know of any other stories like that. They were the first radio broadcast female game in North America. And just a really fantastic story. So we talked to Brenda and 2 of her daughters, and that was a really special story to me. So that's how we did those. And then I look back now and I think, oh my gosh, my hair was really COVID hair in a lot of those pictures. So when I think about the process and timelines, the interviews I started in 2017. Then I restarted in 2020. So I had all of this stuff that I'd go back to every once in a while, and I'd start writing, and then I'd get busy, and then I'd go back to it. And then Terry and I teamed up. We had the book deal with HarperCollins finalized. I think my contract is February 2021, but we knew around Christmas that it was happening. It took a couple weeks. We met in person. Terry and I met in person once through the whole process, one time. That was close to the submission of our first draft, which was Halloween 2021. So it was right before that. And so we met in person one time. The first draft was October 31st, and then we did the reviews and editing after that, which is a very intense process that's not my favorite part. I'm not really great at detail. I'm excellent at big picture. And then we launched it October 18th. So that's how all of that happened. And I want to just take a minute to show some of the pictures. That was the time when we met, actually. That was at Terry's house. And that was the first time I'd ever printed out the whole book. So I took it to Staples, so that was the first time we printed. That's a weird feeling. Mm-hmm. So one of the important things that I wanted to do was to celebrate all the people who gave us their time. That was really important to me. And so I actually had Kellen, my second child, help me with these graphics. So one of the things that I did once we wrapped up was I reached out to all the moms and asked them for pictures of their families, of their kids and of themselves. And we put together these graphics that allowed me to share them on my community of hockey moms and tell a little bit about their story. And of course you're thinking in the back of your mind, this is good for the book. People know about the book. But more than that, I wanted to be able to share how I felt and how they feel about their kids. And I think that these graphics are good to do it. So I'll flip through them quickly. And this is almost all of them. Only 2 people haven't given me pictures yet. So whoops, I'll go back. That's Connor McDavid's family.
Yeah.
That's Kachuk's. You know Kachuk's, Matthews. And then that's Henley's. They're the family. There was a family who had to panhandle to be able to play, and that was them. We have some local families also. Tabitha Leonard is featured. She's a very strong chapter. There. Motorcycle Marge is at the bottom in Minot. There's Gina Oak. She's from Marmara. Gina Bonter, yeah. Yeah, Cece, we have Black activist families, Alex Briggs-Blake and Lauren Camper, really important parts of the book. We wanted to share their story. Indigenous families, that's my friend Katie Wakely that Kellen used to play with, her son. He is doing well. I'm trying to see who that is. That's Mr. Nicholson, Sue Taylor, a goalie mom, and Matt Duchesne and Andrew Shaw, who's from Belleville's two Stanley Cups. Bridget Gore, her son is still playing. Nathan is in the middle with the mom of his two boys. They're featured in the book. And then Jackie Smith is standing with the Stanley Cup. Her son, Devontae, she's really powerful and talks about the racism they've endured. Debbie Doom, my son played with in Kingston. I'm trying to see who that is. Oh, that's Lisa. She was a Russian skater in the Olympics. Her son's now in the OHL. Lizette Kingo. I'll talk about that in a minute. She's a friend. And then Carol Nicholson. She's a sledge hockey mom. Tanya Kim is in the middle from New Zealand. Katie Weatherston, gold medal in the Olympics. That's a family from, have you ever seen the TikTok famous kid who does all the tricks? That's Ada's mom. Really fascinating. And then Cameron Wallace's mom, Sandra. We've got special needs hockey. Bonnie O'Reilly donated her kidney to the rink manager. She's there. Tyson raised $1 million for Make-A-Wish after he got to see Adam Sandler. And this that was a really touching way to start the book. So I just wanted to share that because I think it gives you a sense of the vibe that I felt when we were writing. And then a lot of those people are represented here. So when you start thinking about all the families that are involved in Touch through all of this, I think it gives you a picture of where we are or where it came from. We're going to a Senators game tomorrow night, actually, too. Launch day. I was happy to do it here. I made sure we were in Madoc for launch day. And I didn't want to do something big, but I got to give a book to Tom, and the first book went to Mom. And Dad.
Or Dad.
Both of them. But I had to give it to Mom, because it's about moms. So, I feel like I'm talking for a long time, and I apologize. But what I learned. So, I learned that I missed the hockey community a lot through the pandemic, and that the moms were my connection a lot of the time. And it was special to be able to talk to them. I have a lot of guilt whenever I have success at anything, but I remind myself that luck is preparation meets opportunity. And like I said, Terry had 40 years and I had 12 years of running the community, and that's how it all came together. I also realized that all of us, through all of our lives, but especially when our kids are young, we're growing up with our kids. Like, we really don't know anything. And that's something that everyone learned. Like, I wish I knew then. Women's opinions have always been here, just no one has asked. Everyone's making this big deal now about women's voices need to be heard in hockey, and it's so important for women. We've always had opinions. I had an interview with Sportsnet, and she was saying, "Do you think now is the time?" I said, honestly, like, it's not revolutionary that we have opinions. They didn't just form when we asked them the questions. They've always had them. Just no one asked us about them. So here's the space for some women's opinions. The challenging times. This is something that came up with the most challenging times can breed both resilience and brilliance. I think that that's important. And that the hockey culture needs to change, but so do a lot of other systems. I do think that hockey can be a catalyst for change in other areas, but I don't think it's the only area that has to change. I did 32 interviews before the book even came out about Hockey Canada stuff. And I got tired of that question. Does hockey culture need to change? Yes, so do lots of systems need to change. And we need community. And you're all part of my community, and we need that. So those are the things I learned. And it's been a really incredible experience. I didn't talk a lot about the technical stuff because I don't know, it's the detail stuff is kind of boring to me, but I'm happy to talk about it if you would like. But I wanted to talk about the feeling, and the important part of my community and my family and my friends have all been characters in my life, it feels like. So that's more important to me, and what the feel of the book, I think, is, and why it's been so successful. And I learned today that we're in the library now, like the book is in the library, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, 2 copies.
Yes.
And 21 wait lists, like 21 holds for each copy. So that was probably the coolest stat that I've heard since it started. I was like, that is actually a real thing. So thank you to libraries. And thank you for the opportunity. Thank you. Okay. Do I just go into questions? Does anyone have questions?
I was going to say, if anybody has any questions
Yeah.
for Theresa, go right ahead.
Yeah. I know I probably did a very comprehensive job. Yes.
What do you call the families that have jobs, you said, when your kids are away and they have to stay with another family?
Billet families.
Yeah, so how do you go about getting the right family for, yeah.
That can be tricky.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, this is one of the conversations that I had during the interviews. So the way it works is, the way it's worked for Kellen, there's one person who looks after all the billet families. So you have people who are regulars. There is a chapter in there about billet families. One was with the 67s for 20 years. And the other one, Ryan Rashog's mother, did a lot. They become very close. And Kellen's actually with one right now too. But they find families, and then they try to match you up as best you can, and you become part of their family. But the challenges in the system, in the junior system, in Hockey Canada system, our brains don't develop. My kids' brains don't develop until they're 25. And you're sending kids away at 16 and 17 years old. And ultimately, I'm not supposed to have any contact with anybody, and not just me, any junior team. You deal with the billet family. So if you don't have a good billet family who is able to connect you, it's not a great system for kids, I don't think. You can see the consequences, perhaps.
And there are rules for your kid?
Yeah. The team would have rules, and then each family would have rules that they would cover. So, for example, Kellen is with he and another player right now. Yeah. Other questions?
So what provinces are represented, Theresa? What about the western province, like British Columbia? Do you have much?
We have North. British Columbia was harder to get because they're more skeptical of Ontario. But we have Alberta. We have the North. We have Quebec, and we tried to get some East Coasters. People who have, Lisa Haley actually is from the East Coast, so we do have some East Coasters, yeah.
But there's more of a hockey culture in Ontario, rural Ontario, maybe, do you think?
I think that we were it was like a snowball sample where you would talk to someone, they would recommend you to someone else. And if I was to do it again, I think we'd have an easier time accessing people, and I would probably be more strategic that way geographically, just to make sure, because I don't know how it's doing out west. I know that the book is selling there, but I think once you have a couple people who are actually in the book and promoting it, it does make a difference. Not that that's what it's all about, but you're right. I would say we got to Alberta is pretty strong, but British Columbia was trickier. Yeah. Yes.
I just wondered if you could speak a bit about the kinds of challenges you faced in terms of the hockey mom stereotype. If you're even now when you're marketing the book, or even during the process of it, what it means in terms of the way that you're presenting it is obviously very community driven versus like you mentioned earlier, the stereotype, the nasty stereotype of the hockey mom.
Yeah, I honestly feel like the whole Facebook page and the community started because I had such issues with the stereotype. and I didn't ever want to be that. It was at the time of Sarah Palin, and you remember that joke, what's the difference? You can laugh, but I don't like the joke. What's the difference between a pit bull and a hockey mom? Lipstick? Right? Like, yeah, I get it, but that's not me. So I don't want to be that stereotype. And I think it takes a lot more to run an association than coaches with hockey knowledge. It takes people who have knowledge about a lot of things, and some hockey people have knowledge about how to run organizations, and some really shouldn't be running organizations. But women have a lot of the skills, and moms have a lot of the skills to help get things going, and to be on executive and do all those things. But that's not, if it's like there's a hierarchy, right? NHL, AHL, if you've played in it, any kind of hockey, man, woman, I would say. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that that's how it is. And you learn to just kind of address things differently. And I think that we've been able to open the conversation now, and I'm prepared to have the conversations in different ways, but I wanted to make sure that women came across as strong and intelligent rather than angry and berating people. So maybe people disagree with me, but that's my experience. I've had experiences where I've gotten out of the way so that coaches didn't think that I was trying to approach them. Like another thing that happened was a journalist asked me recently if being on executive I'd ever had experiences where people were upset with me. And I said, yes, there have been times when I was afraid to walk to the car by myself, and I was afraid my tires would be slashed. And his response was to laugh. And I said, I'm not kidding. Like, I'm serious. So, yeah, but you just keep talking about it, and then we'll see what happens, I guess.
Theresa, do you see another book coming or no?
I think that there is room for another book. I think it'll be different. I can't tell you what, I have an idea for a different sort of take. We'll see what happens. I think it's doing well enough that hopefully they'd humor the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. We didn't expect it to be on the bestseller list in the first week. I think that HarperCollins thought that it would be eventually, maybe close to Christmas. So I think it speaks to the importance of just hearing a different perspective in hockey in that world. Yeah. Anything else? You can ask me not in front of people. That's fine too. Yeah.
Okay, be right there.
Okay.
I was just going to say, if that's all the questions that everybody has for now, I'm sure you might take some to ask one-on-one. Theresa, you were going to sign some books today.
Sure.
There are some for sale, but
Sure.
I also wanted to present you with a little gift on behalf of Madoc Public Library. I don't need my cheat sheet for this. I so appreciate you coming tonight. That's fine. And the heartfelt speech that you gave, the emotion. We feel the love for hockey moms.
Yeah.
All moms who are running that gambit, but especially for hockey moms. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you.